Hi, welcome back to my decorating series. This week we will be starting on exterior spaces. The first space we'll do is half of the plaza. So I will admit that I have been very nervous about decorating exterior spaces. Although I have been decorating the interior spaces of my home in this game for over a year, well, not over a year and a half, almost a year and a half. I'm still nervous. Like, it's a different beast. It's how do you break up the exteriors? What ideas do you exhaust in the exteriors? What haven't I done inside that I can do outside? And what might I want to experiment with an outside space that I might have done inside as well? But much like the house build that I have done, I decided to start with the most obvious space, the first space, the plaza, but also wanted to try and keep it simple. So the first area we're doing is focused on shopping, and part of it is because it's, kind of what feels like a town center, the plaza, but also because, the businesses are one of the most important elements in the valley. And so Scrooge's shop, Daisy's boutique, those kind of things, you can't get rid of them once they're there. So actually, I think you start the game with Scrooge's shop. Anyway, and it just makes sense. It's also one of those you can keep it more simple, which if you can give yourself simplicity or restrictions in builds, especially if you are nervous about building, are unsure of what to do, the simpler you can keep things and the more rules you can give yourself usually will help with overall design. So, and also if you look at reference photos for if you have a concept for something, that can help too. I don't always look at reference photos, but sometimes I do. I did look at a few town centers or village centers, that kind of thing, like village shopping areas. I can't remember all the keywords I used, but I had some good ideas already for what those spaces tend to look like, but also just kind of as a jumping off point and what I wanted to do with them. So as you may have noticed, the first thing I did was block out pathing. And I have heard this recommended in not only decoration tips and tricks for this game, but in other games where design is a factor. And if you are dealing with a very large space, one of the things that can help your brain deal with how much room you have is breaking up the space kind of in a logical way. So for a town center, things are usually laid out where you're expecting people to walk through, you're expecting ease of access and mobility. So like you want to be able to get to the shops, you want to be able to get to the stairs, you want to be able to get to entry and exit points, and blocking out where those paths kind of need to run logically is really helpful. A lot of towns are laid out in a grid pattern, so square shapes tend to be easier than, a little bit more organic shapes. And so much like the foyer in the house, where it's like there's a very specific function to a lot of the elements you need, this plaza area should be very similar, at least in kind of obvious elements to incorporate. So the two buildings I wanted to make sure I put in this section, because we are calling it kind of the shopping district, is Scrooge's shop and Daisy's boutique. And so I knew, okay, I need paths, I need these two buildings, and then I need to figure out kind of what sections exist after you add those bigger necessary elements. So I decided on where I wanted to put the paths, I decided on where I wanted to put the buildings, and then I started looking at the spaces that were like right next to the buildings, but then also kind of the spaces that were empty that will need to be filled as well. So the next part was finding shrubs, flowers, bushes, hedges, trees, and maybe some other things that might conceptually go into a plaza. These arches that I've put down were kind of just a thought to like maybe a romantic walk behind the shops, you know, just some paths where people might stroll, you know, on a date or for exercise or something like that. So I'm just kind of playing around, seeing what I've got, seeing what feels empty. I felt like the town center between the buildings felt a little on the empty side, so I wanted to look at some fountains. But now I'm just trying to not only figure out where the buildings make sense, but also kind of marry some of the floral or flora elements, I don't know, the nature elements together. So, okay, how do I use, you know, the bushes and some of the trees and things where it makes like Scrooge's Shop and Daisy's Boutique go together a little bit better. So I'm trying to unify those elements as well. I'm also dealing with spacing because I don't know, it's not really math, although I'm sure you could math it out to the nth degree if you wanted to. But I do find it's better to kind of flip back and forth between the more mathematical brain and then kind of that aesthetic brain, I guess, to make it not only, you know, look symmetrical if that's what you're going for, or at least even in different ways, but also then, you know, you're not being so rigid. If you like rigidity, that's fine. I've been trying to exercise that part of my brain. I tend to be a little bit too rigid and methodical, and therefore a lot of my stuff ends up looking very boxy and plain. I've struggled with that in other games before, so I'm trying to get away from some of those things, but I know that they are still important ways to design, but it's not everything in a line, everything symmetrical, and breaking things into smaller chunks can help with that as well, because then it's maybe symmetrical within the garden space, but not necessarily symmetrical across the entire plaza or across the entire half of the plaza. Each kind of little segment can be its own little symmetrical world, I guess. Oh, I got to use these tulips. I've been so excited for some of the stuff specifically that we had in the game already, but also some of the stuff that I had picked up in the premium shop, because sometimes things are on sale or sometimes I have the moonstones or whatever, and I've been picking up a lot of outdoor elements that I have been looking forward to playing with, and so here we are getting to play with some of them. The tulips are apparently the first major thing that I get to play with. So I really wanted to make this pathway in the back behind Scrooge's shop feel a little bit like it could be romantic, but not necessarily only about romance. I apparently cannot figure out which version of the word romance I want to use in any sentence here. Anyway, I did need to go craft some more fences. I actually went to Scrooge's shop, even though I plunked a workbench down, because I thought maybe I needed to buy some things as well. But I liked the openness of the wrought iron fences as opposed to the picket fences. And here I am trying to see if I can make these arches work, kind of line them up with the trees. And it feels a little bit too closed off there, so I just leave it open with the trees over. It still feels like it could be romantic, but not necessarily only romantic. Those arches feel very romantic to me. So now I'm trying to mess around with the space next to Scrooge's shop. I thought, okay, how about making it a little bit of a seating area or like a picnic area, someplace that people could just relax, and still trying to find trees that might make sense, bushes that might make sense. And, you know, I didn't want to get too many things out. I didn't want too much variety, but I didn't also want to forget anything. There's a lot of elements that are outdoor only that I have not messed around with in excess because I've been doing so much interior work. So I'm going to be scrolling a lot, particularly in these early build videos for the exterior spaces, because I don't know all of them yet. I don't have a lot of them memorized. I don't know what I might be missing. And so, again, looking at this space as its own space, not worrying about whether or not it's symmetrical or uneven with anything else, but, you know, just trying to make it make sense. So I ended up having to do this build over 2 days. So I just changed to the second day. And honestly, it was nice to step away for a day and just, I had kids and family and job and all of that. So, I mean, and real life stuff, but also because it helps kind of reset my brain, because you start to not necessarily burn out, but get a little overwhelmed sometimes, especially when you're uncomfortable with different design areas and concepts, or you're just, haven't done them a lot. So I got to come back, and I didn't pick up exactly where I left off, which was also helpful. Kind of bouncing around from the different spaces here was helpful, even on the same day, because if I kind of got stumped or stuck or was feeling like, well, this isn't quite what I want or quite feel right, I can just shift to another little section, make that make sense, and maybe the stuff that I do in that section helps inform the section I was struggling with. So I'm now addressing the space next to Daisy's shop. As you can see, I put another hedge and bush like I did around Scrooge's shops, so they're kind of tied in, make them look like they were put together on purpose and not just random bushes and random hedges. And now I'm filling in some other little spaces, trying to figure out some lighting. I know I'm going to end up having to craft a bunch. I'm a little concerned with how much I might have to craft. I've been collecting resources and not using them for a long time, but I also know that because I haven't been using a lot of crafted items, and there are a lot of craftables for exterior spaces, that I'm not sure if I have enough materials, but we'll find out, and we'll get creative and see what happens. So, like the place next to Scrooge's shop, I wanted to make the area next to Daisy's boutique a little bit of a seating area. And now that I figured that section out, I can come back to this section, which I was starting to struggle with. What do I put maybe in here to make it feel not just like, oh, look, bench in grassy area next to shop? Are there elements that I can add, art elements? And so I picked a couple of statues. I left the space behind Daisy's boutique empty, and some of the other spaces around the mining nodes empty, because I was really concerned about filling up the space too much. Gameplay is always my favorite element to games. Design is definitely not my forte and not my favorite thing to do. I like having decorated spaces, but I don't want to hinder how I get to play the game. So I didn't want to block off the nodes. I didn't want to close everything off and make it hard to navigate around the space, just across the entire space. It doesn't have to be 100% open, but I definitely don't want to make myself have to run around in circles just to get to a mining node or to gather night thorns or something like that. So I made sure to make the node spaces accessible, but I didn't, not put things down, even if it felt like I might have to kind of go through, like this sales cart and this bush. It's a little bit closed off, but it doesn't feel like a huge pain in the butt. And that's what I was really trying to make sure that I avoided. I don't want to make it hard on myself. Some of my interior spaces got really hard to move around in, but they were also spaces that I definitely was doing just for the decorating aspect and not because I needed to get to storage rooms or crafting tables or anything like that. Those spaces got left more open and accessible for me. So now I'm just trying to scroll through. I don't know exactly as I continue this build if I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth. Maybe if I decorate the other half of the plaza, I might want to add some things back to this side of the plaza. I'm definitely not going to give myself too many restrictions in that regard, because this is still a new thing for me. I don't do a lot of exterior spaces in most games that I play. So this is a learning experience and a way to encourage others who might also struggle with that kind of thing to just give it a go. One of my favorite things is being able to go to all the rooms in the house that I have finished and just be like, look, I did that, and now it's decorated, and if I don't want to ever change it, I don't have to. But I love having the spaces feel, I don't know, full and pretty, and I don't know, just kind of that tap myself on the back and say, you did that, good job, and now you can go back to mining nodes and gathering flowers and all of that. But of course, here we are scrolling, making sure that I didn't miss anything. I'm sure that I did, but I'll learn as I go, and we'll see what we can do. Oh yeah, had to check the lighting at night and decide that there were too many lights. But yeah. Oh, I thought about fireflies. Thought that might be cute, but I decided not to overdo it. All right, let's go over there and check it out. It's both exciting and a little nerve-wracking to have gotten to the exterior spaces. It is definitely more intimidating to start the exterior spaces. One of the main reasons I started on the interiors. I've definitely had more experience decorating not only in real-life interior spaces, not that I'm lavish in my real life, but like games like The Sims or just other games where you have the ability to decorate, maybe Animal Crossing, Dinkum, things like that. I've definitely put more things inside spaces, so I'm more comfortable with that, but I am excited to see how I improve over time, you know, just my skill level, my comfort level, and much like I said earlier, and I probably said it in the foyer space, start with rooms, start with spaces that are a little bit more obvious, that are a little bit more focused, that are better when simple, and a shopping district in a city square or a town center or something like that is a very obvious space. You want people to be able to move around. You might want to have, you know, public gatherings like a festival here, or, you know, date night spot, things like that. And, you know, then break up your space, you know, kind of give yourself some rules to follow. Sometimes the space will give you rules. I need pathing, public seating, public trash and recycling disposal, lighting. Start with your big elements, things the space needs to have in it for whatever you've decided the space is going to be. And, you know, go from there. Start smaller and it'll start to kind of inform itself, I find. Especially when you break it up, because it's overwhelming. Even taking half of the plaza, it was still like, this is a huge space. But once you start filling it in with the things that you need to put in the space, the less you have to work with at any given moment. Do I absolutely love everything I did in this space? Not necessarily. I think it looks good. I like it better than I liked it before when it was empty. And it feels like there was intention behind the different spaces that I created, but it's also meant to be simple. It's also meant to be open. So that is a really helpful starting point. And I'm so glad that I'm getting to these spaces, and I'm really excited to see what we can do. Look at this little square. Like, I just love it. And I did it, you know, I finally faced my fear and did it. So if you are struggling to get started, just start simple, start small, and just see what you can make of it. That's it for today's decorating adventure. If you liked this video, a thumbs up is a great way to let me know, and a subscription will keep you up to date on my latest shenanigans. If you want to hang out with me live, I stream on YouTube and Twitch on Thursday evenings and middays on Sunday. I hope you have a lovely day, night, time, wherever you are, whenever you are. And I'll see you next time.